Okay. Boosted Fox. Boosted Fox. Boosted Dev. Okay. Got a lot of stuff here. Website HTML. This is very big a text. We're a small cast that is focused on best podcasts. Okay. So, okay. What kind of feedback are you looking for here? Do you want feedback on your design? Do you want feedback on the code? What are you looking for? Uh-oh. Am I missing podcast? Oh. So you're probably on Windows or Mac. So your link here says capital P, capital C, podcast.html, but the file you gave me is lowercase p, lowercase c. Those don't match. Depending on the web server or the operating system or whatever file system, that may work or may not work. In this case, it does not work on my machine. So you should be consistent in how you're capitalizing the things in the source code and in the file name. So I will make, whoops, I'll make it work by kind of renaming the file. Shops. Well, your shops link, it looks broken. What, you have some problem with code? I don't know, we'll just see. We have many days in 2020 to see how bad it goes. You haven't put the new one up yet? Oh, for the shops? Okay. I guess we'll start with the code because that's probably what you care about first. So, I hit right click, view page source in Firefox. I don't know if other browsers do this, but Firefox. And you see this red stuff? How it's red over here, and red over here, and red down here. That means something's broken here. In particular, for this red stuff, the problem is you have this left angle bracket link here. Links, you don't use link to make a link. What users of websites call links, these things, are not called links in HTML. These are, so you wouldn't use link there. You would use a. So you're doing a. So this is a correctly formed link here, where you have a ref equals the page name, and then the message, the thing that's linked, the text, and then close. You need to do that here as well. So the only problem you have here is you have this stray left angle bracket link. So if you delete this text that I'm highlighting right now, maybe make it bigger so you can see it. If you delete this text, then this problem goes away, and Firefox won't show this as red. And I think if you fix that, then the next issue would be this li is red. The reason this li is red is because you're closing something you never opened. So if you hover over it in Firefox, it says no li element in scope, but li end tag seen. That's because when you opened it, you said list. But it's not a list. This should be, you should have written li instead, not list. And I think that would fix this issue as well. Yeah. So if you make this li instead of ul, or instead of list, then this red will go away. So it'll be fixed. So I'd suggest in Firefox, maybe Chrome does this as well. Let's see. Chrome does not highlight these errors, so I guess you need to use Firefox or maybe some other browser to highlight those issues. I didn't know about this feature, by the way, this showing red. I just discovered it by opening the source, which is neat. So yeah, like open the view source, address these red things. So the reason this is red down here, or at least the footer thing is red, is footer belongs inside of body. You can't put things, you can only put things inside of head or in body. You can't put them outside of head or body. So you have your head here with stuff in it, like your title and your CSS. And you have your body, which has the things that the person sees. But this footer belongs in the body because the body contains the stuff that people see. So this isn't, body is oddly named. This should be like screen or something like that. It's what the person sees. And the footer, you want the person to see the footer, so that should be inside. And you have the same angle bracket link problem here. Angle bracket link problem here. So you should address that. And here you have an opening H6, but you meant to close it instead. So you need to have a slash before the H6 to close it. And I'm assuming if you go to these other pages, you'll hit similar issues. Yeah. So you got your link issue, you got your H6 issue, because you copy this stuff on all the pages. So you probably have the same issue. You have this H1 thing, same deal. Here you're missing a doc type. So on your website.html, you have the doc type HTML on the top. But you're missing that in your podcast HTML. So you should add it to your podcast HTML. Yeah, at least you're consistently broken. Let's take a look at your CSS. Okay, so you may have noticed that my fonts look different than your fonts. That's because you're asking for the font Rockville Solid. I don't think I have Rockville Solid installed. Maybe I do. Font. Yeah, I don't have it installed. So when you say font family, usually you stick to a small set of fonts and you try not to go crazy with the fonts, because otherwise your website will look very different, or at least the text would look different on different screens, on different machines. And sometimes you can't even really control what font is installed, like on an iPhone or something. So font family, usually you stick to some of there's like some built-in font families. they're called generic family names. So you can pick from these. You can have, usually what you do is this kind of thing, where you give your custom font name, but if it doesn't have, if the computer doesn't have that font, then you fall back to another font. So I don't know what Rockville Solid is supposed to look like, but maybe you can find one of these generic fonts that looks similar to your Rockville Solid. So on a machine that doesn't have Rockville Solid, it'll kind of almost look the same, or almost look like what you want it to look like. Should you include that with the file? The font? I advise against using fonts in websites unless you have a very particular purpose. I don't want to get into the details of why, but so if you want to have the font included with your packaged with your website, you need to convert that font to a web font, and then you can refer to that font, that web font file. But that's, and also you need, if you do that and you publish the site, you have to have a license to use that font and distribute it, which can get bad if you don't really own a license to distribute it. It's kind of like taking photos from other people's websites and putting it on your own. Like, a font is artwork. It's copyright material. It's, somebody put a lot of effort into making the font, and for you to just distribute it to other people as if you had the right to do that is a bad idea. I mean, I don't know if you do have a license to Rockville Solid to distribute it. Maybe you do, but the simplest thing to do is not to have to deal with the legality of distributing fonts. Usually only larger companies distribute custom fonts with their website. So if you go so MDN is a great resource. I use it all the time for doing web stuff. They have stuff on HTML and CSS, and it's not always accurate, but it's pretty good. Like, they give tons of examples and stuff of how to use things and explanations, and like showing you what's invalid and what's valid. So I recommend you look at this page for font family to get a sense of how to do stuff. How to pick a font. Yeah, fonts are a lot of work. And I notice you're saying the font family in many places. One of the benefits of CSS is you can, if you want this font to be used for everything or most things, then you can put this font family directive in the body, and then anything inside the body, which is everything, will get that font family automatically. Similar to how you have text align center on your body, so everything will automatically get center aligned. So you really don't need these text align center directives. But you have like color blue here. If you only want to make this thing blue and not everything blue, then you keep it on your paragraph. You wouldn't throw this on body. Unless you want everything to be blue, Yeah. And if you're not familiar with them already, I highly recommend you start playing around with the dev tools. So I have the dev tools open right now. And this is great for tinkering around with stuff. So let's say you want to tweak this Instagram title. So what I usually do is right click on it in Firefox and click inspect element, and it opens up this panel. Like if it's not open already, it'll open it for you. And on the left you'll see your HTML. Make sure you're in the inspector tab for this. And left you'll see your HTML, and it'll have like ways to hide and show parts of it. But we have our word Instagram here in our H1. And on the right, we can customize the CSS. So one thing that's common that I do is I like check and uncheck stuff to see how it looks. Like if I uncheck the font size, then I can see your font size is changing. But you can also like click the font size and then change it. So if I want to make this 10px, I can type 10px and it's now 10px. If you click it and use the arrow keys, you can go up and down to grow and shrink it a little bit at a time. To say, oh yeah, that looks good. Okay, I'll keep it at 50. So if you change this, you're not actually changing the file. So if I refresh, then it goes back to whatever the file has. So after you make your little change here, you need to kind of remember what changes you made and then go to the file and change the font size in the file. It tells you right here, I don't know if you can see it on the screen very well, but it says website.css:23. The :23 means line 23. So the first line would be line 1, and then depending on your editor, you might have a line number count. But I imagine line 23 is around here. So if you don't know where this is in your file, you can see on the right where it is in the file, or maybe you have multiple CSS files. This can tell you where these directives are, and then you would open this in your editor and change 60 to 50 to save that change. Does git add sort out changed files for itself if you add everything, or do you have to look at which files have actually been changed? Yeah, you can git add and it'll sort it out. It'll figure out what changed and not show you. It'll not be confused if you're git adding a file that was untouched. Hello, Poppy. So especially if you're doing CSS stuff, I highly recommend you play around with the inspector. So you can, like, if I clear out the text align stuff, it gives me a bunch of suggestions. So if I don't remember what, maybe I think it's middle, maybe I typed middle. Well, maybe I typed middle and I'm like, why isn't it working? Then it shows me this warning saying invalid property value, and then I can clear it out and it gives me suggestions, and I say, oh, center is what I meant, so I'll put center. It's a bunch of really handy stuff. So hopefully that gets you, hopefully you learn stuff. Boxed Fox. Seems like you have a good sense of what you're doing and what you want to accomplish, so keep at it. Is there anything else you want me to look at? Boosted Fox.